Section 3.4 is about the colonies of Plymouth and the Massachusetts Bay Colony. So both of these locations come as the next major colonies after Jamestown. So Jamestown, Plymouth, and the Massachusetts Bay Colony are truly the stepping stones of what will become colonization in America. So what is our typical settler that's coming to the New World at that time? Very few of them are indentured servants coming to Plymouth or the Massachusetts Bay Colony, primarily because they're Puritan driven and the idea of you come on your own fruition. Most of them are middle class families, and they're going to come to New England, and for the most part they're going to find that it's a healthier place to live. Many of them are going to come from places where it's very overcrowded. If you can live past your first winter in the New World, in the colonies, you can most likely make it a decent amount of time. They're land hungry. They're willing to sacrifice everything they have for a model society. They're going to limit church membership to what they call saints. These are those who they believe are already chosen by God to go to heaven. Everyone else has absolutely no say. So servants, unclean people. Basically, saints were rich people who could afford to pay for everyone else to come to the New World. And so that is your primary settler into Puritan rich areas. New England is going to be very much Puritan based in the way it happens. So Plymouth is going to be our first colony, our first major colony. Let's move me out of the way so you can see the Mayflower there. The Pilgrims call themselves separatists. They believed the Church of England was so corrupt that they had to start over and separate themselves from the church. They're not called pilgrims until 1669, which is basically 50 years after they arrive. They're mostly farmers, mostly families that are starting out. In the beginning, the individuals from Plymouth are going to go to the Netherlands first. And the problem that they have is they're kind of this ultra-Christian of forcing other people to try to believe what they have, telling everybody that they're wrong or horrid, causing problems with the people in the Netherlands. And so the king of the Netherlands basically tells them they got to leave. In 1617, they decide they're going to start over in the New World, and they're going to purchase 3 ships. Unfortunately, the first 2 ships sink before they can get on their voyage. Only the Mayflower is good enough to make the voyage. Now, they originally were supposed to land in Virginia. They received a charter, and they were supposed to land near Jamestown and establish a location there. But they decided to go north. Now, there are reports that a storm knocked them off course, but William Bradford, who is their leader, may have made a course correction in the middle of the night to send them to a different place. And so they're going to land in Massachusetts versus that of the Chesapeake Bay. When they get there, they decide they need a frame of government. They really need to figure out what they can do. Their land patent they received from the king wasn't even completed. It was supposed to be officially signed by those in Jamestown. So William Bradford had told his people that it wasn't viable because it wasn't finished. Only 41 of the 121 passengers that set out for the New World were considered to be church members, and they're the only ones who had a say. And so they're going to come together and write the Mayflower Compact. So here's the Mayflower Compact. It's the first self-governing document signed by the congregation. Like I said, 41 men married or part of the clergy. Single men were left out. It was written as a social contract between the members of the Plymouth colony and that of those who will be governing them. It also set up laws for the colony on who would be there, what their responsibilities were, and that the heads of Plymouth would take care of everyone. Nobody would be left out. Their first winter was very, very bad. 50% of them are going to die in a few months. And Massasoit, who is a Wampanoag chief, he really feels sorry for them. Both the Pokanoket and the Wampanoag do help out the Pilgrims, help out Plymouth. The Pokanoket are the strongest helpers, but Massasoit, in the beginning, he sees that these children are dying and these women and children are dying. And so he sends his men to educate the white man on how to take care of their families. So basically he teaches them how to plant in sandy soil, teaches them what the best things to hunt, where they could gather goods, and basically how to prepare their houses so it doesn't get so cold. And so this is how the natives in the area help out the Pilgrims. So this friendship is going to form up, which eventually leads to a very large dinner. And there are reports either the natives showed up while they were preparing all the extra food they have after a harvest. They don't have refrigeration like we have today. So anything they had that is massively overproduced, they would have to cook or it'd just rot. And so at harvest time, it's one reason why big feasts were had at harvest time, is to use all this extra food. And so the Native Americans came to Plymouth on a day that they were having one of these big feasts. Now, we don't know if they were invited or if they just showed up. All we know is a feast was held, which will start a local tradition in New England that eventually, during the American Civil War, will be made a national holiday of Thanksgiving. But this is what they do at harvest time. Now, the other colony that we have is the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was established through a joint stock company. They received a royal charter in 1629, and they wanted a holy community. They remained Anglican. They didn't change who they were. They limited church membership to those who were wealthy. We had 900 Puritans that are going to come to the New World. 200 of them were wealthy Puritans. The other 700 they brought in tow. Their children, their servants, that kind of thing. Laborers, skilled craftsmen. Those individuals are going to come with them. Their leader was John Winthrop, pictured here. He wanted to establish a colony that was like a beacon on a hill. And so they're literally going to look for the highest hill they can find and build Massachusetts Bay Colony on top of it. It's the city of Boston today. And his ideology is that if one person was not pious enough, if one person committed a sin, then everyone was doomed. So it held everyone accountable for every single person's actions. You can only vote if you're a male member of the church with property, however. The government should enforce religion as the top. They're going to really look down on the poor, what they considered poor, vicious, or an infirm. If God had wanted them to have better positions, he would have had them born into a wealthy family. So that idea is going to persist through. And so the Massachusetts Bay Colony does well in the beginning. They do get to a point where there are people who do not agree with them. So they have the situation where John Winthrop really is heavy-handed. And he tries to keep everybody in these very strict rules of Puritanism. But people will speak out against him. And so he is going to ban anybody who's non-Anglican, anyone who he considers to be a heretic to the Puritan church. So the Puritans feel that they can claim kind of any unused land. If they don't see it being used or cordoned off, then they could take it. So by the 1630s, only a few tribes could challenge the Puritan encroachment. Roger Williams, pictured here, is one of those individuals who didn't agree with that. He thought that they should work with the native population to figure out how to build land and make sure that everyone was doing okay. But John Winthrop and the church saw natives as something lesser than them. In 1631, Roger Williams began to criticize the Massachusetts Bay Colony for staying Anglican. They wanted, basically he wanted individual liberty and treatment for the native population. Proponents of religious freedom and the separation of church and state. And remember, John Winthrop said the church is the state. So that's going to be a problem. His biggest statement will be, if God already chose who goes to heaven, then why do we have to go to church? That is going to get him banished. In 1636, after he makes this statement at church, he's going to be banished. He's going to travel southward. He's going to purchase land from natives 50 miles south of where Boston is, and he's going to establish Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island is the first colony to truly have complete 100% religious freedom. In 1644, they're going to receive a royal charter from the king. They have enough individuals coming into that area that they can do that. The borders of Rhode Island that we have today is the borders of what Roger Williams purchased. And so that is what they have stuck to. The other person that's important to know about when it comes to dissidents is Anne Hutchinson. In 1634, she's going to travel to New England with her husband and her 15 kids. That's right, 15 kids. And she said God gave her a vision that there is this place on earth for her and her family in New England itself. And so she's the most prominent woman in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And this kind of goes up against John Winthrop's idea of women should remain silent and in the kitchen. And so they're going to charge her with heresy and going against the station of a woman. In 1637, they're going to accuse her of antinomianism, which is saying things that, saying you don't have to go to church. Which she never said that you don't have to go to church. It's just that if you have faith in God, the church is you're not bound to the church. In 1637, she goes on trial. It's an all-male court. The general court is all male property owners. She eventually will be exiled from Boston. She travels to Rhode Island, where her cousin Roger Williams already is, and she is going to help him do all the paperwork he needs to make it a royal charter. All right. So the next section is 3.5, where we're going to talk about more colonies.